Hello, this is Chris Shepard of StampedeBlue.com. Each week I produce an opponent scouting report that goes into pretty great depths on each Colts opponent. I talk about all three phases of the game, the schemes that we're likely to see, and the players who will be charged with executing the enemy's game plan. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different with one section of the scouting report. This week the Colts take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jags will be starting Nick Foles at quarterback. In the written report, I take a deep dive on Jags offensive coordinator John DeFilippo's offense and its ties to Nick Foles that came during their improbable 2017 Super Bowl run. This week's game marks the second start for the former Super Bowl MVP after leaving their Week 1 contest with a broken collarbone, which I'm sure you guys saw the highlight many times. But anyway, in his place, sixth-round rookie sensation Gardner Minshew has been starting, well, pretty much the entire season. And in this piece, I really dug into the offense and the two players that Foles and Minshew are. And before I did that, I didn't really understand what head coach Doug Marrone was thinking when he decided to put Nick Foles back in over Gardner Minshew. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I just want to tell you what you're getting into with this video. I'm about to go through every pass that Nick Foles has attempted for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's only 8, so it's not like there's a lot of them. But I'm going to go through all 8 passes, and in between each of those passes, I'm going to break down a similar throw from Gardner Minshew. My goal isn't really to prove that one quarterback's better than another. Instead, what I want to do, I just want to show that the similarities between these two quarterbacks and the differences that they have, and how the Jags offense might change based on Nick Foles being back in compared to Gardner Minshew. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at the first play. We've got the first throw from Foles, starts in the shotgun with 11 personnel, which is just a fancy way of saying that there's one running back and one tight end on the field, and by default that means there can only be 3 receivers. So at the snap, DJ Chark is going to run from left to right, and Foles fakes the handoff to Leonard Fournette. The offensive line's giving an outside zone look to the left, which pulls most of the defense with them that way. The secondary stays home, and the backside defensive end was containing like he should, so the poor guy was left out there to cover DJ Chark. But ultimately, he plays his responsibility on this play. His job was to rush the passer in the event that it was a pass. He hopes that the guys behind him were doing their job. They really weren't. And so DJ Chark was able to catch this ball and get upfield a little bit. Nick Foles avoided the pressure and was able to get the pass off in the flat, able to pick up a few yards on this play. Chark makes a nice move. So the next play, we're going to take a look at Gardner Minshew. It's a very similar concept, but this play starts from under center. They are playing a worse defense than the Bengals, but take it for what it is. So anyway, the play starts under center. Minshew fakes to Fournette. If you guys are seeing it right now, you're seeing that the same outside zone look, except this way it's an outside zone to the right, and Minshew's rolling left, which is away from the way that you typically roll as a right-handed quarterback. Either way, his receiver is still coming from, this time it's right to left, but across the formation. And still, that backside contained defensive end is left in a really unfortunate situation. And again, he rushes the passer like he should. And just like Foles was able to do, Minshew is able to avoid the pressure, get the pass off, and pick up a nice little chunk there. There are a few differences and similarities on these two plays. For one, it's close to the same concept. The other routes are different, but the only real options on the play are still that crossing wide receiver and the trailing tight end. The trailing tight ends come from different parts of the formation. If you go back and you look at that, one of them comes on the play side, the other's on the back side. But either way, those are really the only two options. You never want to roll one way and then throw back across field. That's a really good way to create an interception. So really, there are only 2 passing options on both of these plays. Very similar plays. But, once again, it ended up being the same, and both guys were able to execute it in the same way. You're going to figure this out eventually. But I really don't expect the Jaguars' play calling to change much at all, if it changes even a little bit. So the next play that we're going to take a look at is from Foles, and I thought that this play was really going to differentiate the two quarterbacks. Once again, Nick Foles is in shotgun with 11 personnel. He has one receiver to his right, and Foles recognizes that he's going to have one-on-one coverage, and the Chiefs don't have any help over the top. So Foles takes his shot. He is throwing to the narrow side of the field, so this pass has an extra degree of difficulty just due to the fact that he doesn't have as much room to fit the ball in. Foles misses the pass, but he did make sure that the ball couldn't be intercepted. Ball was, a couple yards out of bounds. End of the story. So now we'll take a look at Minshew, who throws a similar ball. But like I said, at first I expected to Minshew. I didn't expect Minshew to push the ball down the field. Coming from an air raid offense, he definitely had vertical passing concepts that he was familiar with under Mike Leach, his last season at Washington State. But the bread and butter of the air raid are really short, high percentage throws. A lot of underneath stuff. They really like mesh concepts right over the middle at 5 to 7 yards. But instead, what I saw was that Minshew isn't afraid to let him rip if he sees that he has an open receiver downfield. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look here. And this one is a little bit different because it's coming against zone coverage. But still, it was a deep throw that Minshew was able to put right on the money near the sideline. And he saw his receiver and he took a shot. He probably could have fitted in underneath, but he wasn't. He didn't play it conservative. He went over the top. Had a nice completion for a nice game. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to point out is that this play may not highlight it. It may not show it as well as some other plays that I saw. But Nick Foles does have a stronger arm than Gardner Minshew at this point. As of today, Nick Foles can fit balls into tight spaces that Gardner Minshew just can't. So that's one of the differences between these two guys. I would give the nod to Nick Foles on that. But at the same time, Gardner Minshew can make most throws that an NFL quarterback needs to make. But Nick Foles can make them all. So next up, we're going to go back to Nick Foles, and he's going to be in the shotgun once again. And that's something that you're going to see a lot from this offense, and I get into that a lot more in the written breakdown of this offense. But in case you couldn't tell, you're going to see a lot of guys in shotgun, regardless of who the quarterback is. The Chiefs are going to come out in the zone, and the Jags are going to run. They're going to have two pass catching options that run curl routes underneath the coverage. Let me go back. So they really have two guys that sit down underneath the coverage, and he's got a back that escapes out in the flat. Now, part of what you're seeing here is the fact that Nick Foles does have a fairly strong arm. You're not going to confuse him with Patrick Mahomes, but he believes he can fit this ball in. He probably should. He definitely should have dumped this ball off to the back to let the back see what he could pick up. But instead, he tries to fit the ball in, and he was not able to get a completion. So the next play, Minshew's play starts out pretty similarly, but the Jags they do space the field a little bit better on this play. It's actually a better run play because there's not as many receivers kind of bunched up on that one side of the field. So anyway, Minshew is able to see the one receiver go deep. His other receiver sits down in the curl route. His back goes out into the flat, and he sees the defender go with the back into the flat. So now Minshew sees that his receiver has just a little cushion there, and he can fit that in. He fits it in. The receiver is able to pick up a couple extra yards. So Nick Foles has only thrown 8 passes this season before he went down with injury, so I'm not going to bury the guy for that one mistake that he made. With that said, Minshew did impress me consistently with his ability to see what a defense was giving him and then make the right decision. More often than not, Minshew made the right decision, which is impressive considering the fact that he was drafted in the 6th round. So on this next play, Nick Foles is back in the gun again, and the Chiefs are in another soft zone. Foles recognizes it and dumps the ball off to his tight end. in the flat on the wide side of the field. Most fans are probably going to assume that he made a mistake on this play just due to the fact that, well, if you look at it, it looks like he's got a lot of other options. Right now, if you look at the 30-yard line, it looks like that he's got a receiver wide open, and he kind of does. But we don't really know what the progressions were on this play. And so it looks like that, but I believe that this is what Nick Foles was coached to do. And I believe that he was coached to do it because, well, you're about to see, this is a play in the same game with Gardner Minshew. But he gets the same look, and he did the same exact thing that Nick Foles did. I think that he had other options on this play, but he got that soft zone coverage. His back has room to run. So before watching any of the routes develop, really, he's going to dump it off to his back and see what he can get him, and he goes out and picks up a couple. So again, I think that was just something that they were coached to do, and if you're going to criticize anyone for those decisions, it should probably be the coaching staff. The next snap that we're going to take a look at, Foles in gun. This is where I see the biggest physical difference between the two quarterbacks. It's not necessarily arm strength. There is a difference there. Foles has a bigger arm, but this is the biggest difference. Foles is going to hit the top of his drop here. We'll go ahead and roll it. Hits the top of his drop, and he has to step up into the pocket before he delivers a strike down the field. So that was a pretty impressive escape from pressure. He gets out of it, able to make the throw downfield for a nice big gain. But when you watch Gardner Minshew get out of pressure, he gets out of pressure, but it just looks different. He had to sidestep a defender, run towards the line, which holds those linebackers that are that are kind of at the 40-yard line right now. Those guys, they're held up for just a second, just a split second, because they're not sure if Gardner Minshew is going to run, because he is a threat to run. So those guys get held up. Meanwhile, Chris Conley runs towards daylight, and Minshew gets them the ball, and Conley does the rest. So that is the biggest physical difference between the two quarterbacks. Foles isn't a bad athlete for the position. He can escape pressure. He can move in the pocket. And if you need him to, he can run just a little bit. But he can't create outside of the pocket the same way that Minshew can. On the other side of that is the fact that too often Minshew does rely on that ability, and sometimes he is slow to progress through his downfield reads. Foles does process those reads quicker, which is something that you would probably expect from a veteran quarterback when you're comparing him to a sixth-round rookie. Either way, Minshew is able to make more plays with his legs, and he's definitely the more exciting player to watch. Not necessarily better, but more exciting for sure. These next two plays are Minshew and Foles are just throwing screen passes, and all it really shows is that the Jaguars will sometimes throw screen passes. So we'll let these roll here. And there's a screen. This one actually gets called back due to holding, but I found a screen pass, and, well, they called it. Okay. So this next pass, Nick Foles does go from under center. He's going to give a play-action fake before looking to his deep routes. He sees that they are covered, and he does the right thing and checks down to his back, who is also covered, but it was a safer throw. So this next play, Gardner Minshew does pretty much the same thing. He reads his deep routes first before he hits his back. The big difference is the route that the back ran and the result after the ball was thrown. For all I really know, that could have been a design play to the back. I don't necessarily think that, but it's certainly possible. They could have just tried to clear it out so that he would get that open underneath, and he could go and run and try to create in the open field. This is the eighth and final attempt that we're going to look at for both these guys today. Foles is in a shotgun formation with trips right and an end line tight end to his left. Leonard Fournette is lined up next to him in the backfield. So once this ball is snapped, Fournette is going to pick up a blitzer. While Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones, it's kind of tough to tell from this angle, but he is busy absolutely murdering the Jaguars' right guard. So Chris Jones is about to burst through the line, but as of right now, the Jags receivers, they've crossed and they're trying to create confusion in the Chiefs' defensive backfield, which they succeed in doing. A safety, I'm not sure. I don't know who it is exactly. Number jerseys are kind of hard to read from this angle. But a safety chooses wrong. Nick Foles recognizes it, and he's going to deliver. He's going to stand in, take a hit, and throw this ball a mile. And really, it's a perfect over the shoulder ball to DJ Chark in the end zone. For the record, Chris Jones did fall on Foles with his body weight, and by rule, it should have probably been a 15-yard penalty. So we go to Minshew's play that's similar. It is a little different in that, number one, it's from the 20 instead of the 40. And the second is that he doesn't have a 300-pound monster getting ready to hit him. The most impressive part of this play, though, is that right here is where Gardner Minshew starts his windup. Right now, DJ Chark is 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, and Gardner Minshew is already getting ready to throw this ball. His guy isn't even with the corner yet, but Minshew sees where the safety is. He knows the safety can't make the play, and he believes that DJ Chark is going to run underneath it and make a catch. So he throws a ball. Now that pass isn't as impressive as Nick Foles' pass was, but it was still a good ball. It was a good ball. He gave Chark a chance to go up and make a play, and Chark came down with it. The first thing that I want to note about all 8 plays from both guys is that this offense isn't really going to be called any differently. And it's because that, well, Gardner Minshew and Nick Foles are pretty similar as players. They both have their, unique skill sets, and they do set themselves apart from each other a little bit. But the biggest overall difference between these guys is experience. If you're Doug Marrone and you're sitting 1 game below 500 after the terrible year that you had last year, your job is definitely on the line, and you've got to make a choice. Do you play the young, exciting rookie who looks like the Jags' long-term future at the position, or do you play the older, wiser, former Super Bowl MVP? Like I said, both guys are really, really alike in most aspects of their game. So if I'm Doug Marrone, I'm probably going to see what Foles can give me. And worst case, I can always throw Uncle Rico back in the game and see what happens. So that's it for this video. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to head over to Stampede Blue. Check out the rest of my work on this Jaguars offense. Tomorrow I'll cover the defense, and then on Thursday I'll roll out the special teams look, which, it's special teams. It's kickers, punters, but I also have some predictions, some other things in there. It's worth a read. It's much quicker than my others. This is probably going to be a long watch and a long read, but hang in there with me. I think they're worth it. You can follow me on Twitter at NFL Scheme. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys again next time.